Okay, what's going on everyone? Doc here, and today I want to talk about Apocalypse. So, fair warning before we start, I apologize, this is going to be a long video because Apocalypse has so much going on to explain, and I also wanted to show off a ton about him for a pretty specific reason. I was already planning on making a CCP review of Apocalypse because I've been having a ton of fun playing this dude, and he is really, really good, but after seeing a lot of comments on the deep dive comparing him to like Ebony Maw level of damage, I really felt like I needed to make this just to show off how good he is as a solo champion. I'm mostly going to be focusing on Apocalypse himself in this video. All of the gameplay that I show, except for a very short amount, is all Apocalypse, and I talk mostly about his own abilities, and I kind of put the Horsemen to the side for this. The Horsemen of Apocalypse is definitely the thing most people are going to be looking at Apocalypse for, and I will cover that in a couple separate videos that I'll upload after this one shows up as well. But I really wanted to show what Apocalypse himself brings to the table and what he can do. He has great immunities, he has some really good burst damage on his specials, and he has a lot of utility as well. So, there's a ton to cover, and this is going to be a very long video, but I really wanted to show off just how good I think Apocalypse really is. Hopefully you all enjoy. Just leave a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this, and let's hop into the abilities so I can teach you all about Apocalypse. So Apocalypse's passive is his total molecular control. So Apocalypse doesn't have immunity to Bleed, Incinerate, and Disorient, but over 8 seconds while having these effects on them, he's going to develop an immunity to them. So once developed, this immunity is going to persist for the entire quest. So right here against the Energy Adoption Fire Sabretooth, after 8 seconds of having the Incinerate tick on him, he's going to immediately become Incinerate immune there. Everything's going to shrug off, and for the rest of the quest, I never have to worry about getting an Incinerate debuff on me again. Similarly, he also gets a 10% chance to bypass evade every time that the opponent evades. So right here against Stealth Suit Spider-Man, you can see a little tick with a little evade icon that's in red under Stealth Suit Spider-Man with a 40. That means that Stealth Suit Spider-Man has evaded 4 times, and now Apocalypse has a 40% chance to bypass these evades. Again, this bypass evade is going to persist throughout the entire quest, so once that reaches 100, no champion that you fight after is ever going to evade you. Finally, Apocalypse does cause the opponent to suffer 100% purifiability accuracy reduction, meaning that he is a perfect counter to fights where the opponent is going to constantly purify stuff like Agent Venom. So Apocalypse's genetic code is his persistent charges. So he starts the quest with 1, and he's going to have 2 if defending, or 3 if on a final boss node. And these kind of become important because he does have effects that could make him a little bit more of a pain on defense the more code that he gets, and they're also helpful for you on attack as well. So knocking out any non-robotic opponent is going to give you 1 genetic code. So right here, I actually have 2 against Heimdall because the first fight I knocked out a Phoenix. So now against Heimdall, I'm going to start with 2. He also can gain 2 at the start of a fight when fighting a mutant, and then when actually KOing the mutant, he's going to have 4, because that is 1 for knockout, 2 for starting against a mutant, and then 1 for starting the quest as well. So you want to have that first fight be a mutant, similar to like if you were starting with Corvus, where you want to get that mutant charge. At the start of a fight, for each of these genetic codes that he has, up to the maximum of 4, he's going to gain a prowess passive, which increases special attack damage by 40% up to a max of 160% increased special attack damage. At 3+ genetic code, this is where his utilities come in. He can become stun immune while striking the opponent. So stuff like if you were going to get auto blocked and parried, you won't actually get the stun from being parried there. And when Apocalypse has over 4 genetic code, striking the opponent's block with a light attack inflicts a short stun debuff. It does have a 12-second cooldown on it, but it can be really good for gaining a quick opening, like here against the Sabretooth where I need to transfer Bane. I just hit into his block with a light attack, I get that stun, and I can continue my combo. So this is a really cool ability that he has. It has no effect against well-timed blocks though, so if you're trying to fight him as a boss, you're not always going to get stunned through your block. Apocalypse's heavy attack, both hits are going to inflict a bleed debuff on the opponent, and each hit is also going to refresh weakness, poison, concussion, and degeneration effects on the opponent, and those effects are placed with his special attacks. Apocalypse's damage really comes from his special attacks. So first off, if the opponent is suffering from any damage over time effects, the special attacks debuffs are going to trigger on activation, and they're going to last 30% longer. And he has 4 different debuffs that he can place: weakness, poison, concussion, or degeneration, depending on the special attack and which attack you use before using the special attack. So it's a little bit complex to kind of figure out, but once you kind of get the hang of it, you know it pretty easily. So his damage really comes from this burst physical damage, though. You see it really make an impact. Right here, this Deadpool is taking an extra 1,400 per hit, because for each of those debuffs that the opponent has on them, Apocalypse is dealing just under 700 burst physical damage for every hit, and Apocalypse's, both his SP1 and SP2, have quite a lot of hits in them. So Apocalypse's SP1 is going to inflict those debuffs determined by the first light or medium attack thrown, like I said. Also, if Apocalypse is fighting a mutant, or if he already has 4 genetic code, then he's going to immediately trigger both, so you don't need to worry about which attack to use. So right here, I'm using a light attack before launching the special, which means that he's inflicting that weakness debuff on the opponent. And if I were to use it after a medium attack, he's going to inflict that poison debuff instead. So just like his SP1, you're going to inflict the debuff based on the last light or medium attack thrown. Right here, I'm using the medium attack to inflict that non-stacking degeneration. And in this clip, I'm using the light attack to inflict the non-stacking concussion. And so the concussion does 35% ability accuracy reduction. It's not a lot, but it can be really good. And again, if you are fighting a mutant, or if you have 4 genetic code, you're going to trigger both of these debuffs right away. So Apocalypse's SP3, all personal weakness, poison, concussion, and degen effects are going to be re-triggered at increased 100% potency and paused indefinitely. So stuff like that concussion that I just talked about that has a 35% ability accuracy reduction, it's going to become 70% now. The degen and poison are going to do more damage, and the weakness is going to cause the opponent's attack rating to be reduced by even more. It's also going to pause these 4 debuffs indefinitely. The potency increase won't stack if you use multiple SP3s, but a 70% reduced ability accuracy is pretty good, honestly. If there are none of the debuffs on the opponent when you activate the SP3, however, you're going to inflict 2 of the 4 at random, and they won't gain the additional potency, and they also won't be paused. Apocalypse's SIG ability is really good because it's one of those just nice to have kind of things. So when he doesn't participate in a fight, he's going to save up a regen passive, and he can store up to 2 of these, and at the start of the next fight, he's going to regen for each fight that his teammates won while he kind of sat out. So you can only stack up to 2, so basically you want to have Apocalypse fight every 3rd fight, really. And right here, I heal for 8% with 2, but I'm only at SIG 20. At SIG 200, this 1364 health becomes 4,000, so I could heal 8,000 just by sitting out for 2 fights. It might as well just be free potions here in a SIG ability, and it can be really nice as long as you're making sure to use Apocalypse every couple of fights. So Apocalypse only has 2 unique synergies that actually affect him. First off, a self-activated synergy. Apocalypse gains 15% attack rating for every mutant on the team, excluding himself. So if you're going to have another mutant to activate for the Horsemen of Apocalypse, which you're pretty much always going to have, you're going to get a base 15% attack rating, which can be nice to have. Not at all necessary, though, if Apocalypse is your best mutant, you just want to use him. I use this next synergy once or twice in the video and in my gameplay just to make things easier, but again, it's not necessary. Apocalypse with Sinister, Kang, or Cable, he's going to start the first fight in a quest with maximum genetic code. So he gets all the bonuses of having maximum genetic code, increased prowess, so increased special damage, and he can trigger a Horseman after the first fight, no matter if it's a mutant or not. So that can be kind of nice, but it's not at all necessary if you have the ability to ramp up Apocalypse before you need that Horseman, or before you need those debuffs triggering, which most of the time you don't need that stuff immediately anyway. So 2 synergies, they're nice to have, but not super necessary at all. So Apocalypse on his own does just fine. So the Horseman of Apocalypse is his most interesting and really, really powerful ability. Apocalypse has the ability to basically spend his 4 genetic code and put a pre-fight on the opponent. The next mutant attacker who enters becomes a Horseman of Apocalypse. So by spending that 4 genetic code, the next mutant gains 100% bleed resistance, which means that they're not going to shrug every bleed debuff, but instead they're going to be constantly gaining willpower healing from it, if you obviously have willpower, which makes pretty much every mutant a little bit suicide friendly, which is phenomenal. She's also going to give every mutant 50% passive indefinite prowess buff, plus 30% offensive ability accuracy. They will also go unblockable for 2 seconds when the opponent purifies a debuff. So right here against Colossus, it's a really interesting interaction, because Colossus is going to purify the stun debuff on the opponent with every heavy attack. He goes unstoppable with every heavy attack as well. It's not super necessary since he's already using a heavy attack. It might as well be unblockable, but it's just a nice little interaction there. And then also, if you get hit, once per fight, you're going to go passively unstoppable for 3 seconds. I think I get hit here in a couple seconds. Yeah, right there. And it lasts for quite a while as well. So you get a lot of use out of that as well to kind of just tank some damage and back out if you're getting hit by a special attack like I was there. So going back to synergies, I want to talk about his special Horseman synergies. So I didn't mention these before because Apocalypse himself doesn't benefit from any of them, but for these 6, it gives them all a base ability and then an extra ability when they are a Horseman. So first off, Storm. Each hit of her heavy attack into a shocked opponent has a 60% chance to inflict an additional shock debuff, dealing 90% of modified attack over 8 seconds. When she is a Horseman, however, her shock effects last 50% longer, and her heavy attacks refresh all shock debuffs on the opponent. 100% chance, they're always going to do it. So after a single special with Storm, you can pretty much stack up to like 30 plus shock debuffs with your heavy attack, just spamming it all the time and just constantly refresh shock. It's absolutely insane. Psylocke, I showed this one a little bit, but her base is that her basic attacks give her a 30% chance to grant a side charge now, in addition to her every 5 combo and every time the opponent gains a bar of power. And if she is a Horseman of Apocalypse, she also gains a 50% critical damage rating and 30% attack rating when striking an opponent at 0 power. With Wolverine, personal bleeds have a chance based on critical rating to be critical bleeds, and those deal damage based on critical damage. So basically, every time you crit and deal a bleed, you're going to do a critical bleed, and it's going to deal some extra damage. And if Wolverine is a Horseman, he gains increased critical rating and increased critical damage rating, so you're going to be doing those crit bleeds more often, and they're going to be doing even more damage. Storm Pyramid X, after charging her dormant prowess with her heavy attack, Storm has a 70% chance to trigger a passive prowess for each prowess buff that she already has. So basically a 70% chance to double her prowess, which is, she can get a lot of prowess in the right scenarios. It's absolutely insane. And each of those passive prowess can give her a plus 20% special attack damage. As a Horseman, she gains a base 30% crit rating increase, and all of her prowesses have an extra 20% potency. Gambit, probably the weakest out of all of these, but this one can still be pretty interesting as a Horseman. Each time a kinetic charge is gained, he has a 70% chance to gain an additional one. And for each, as a Horseman, for every kinetic charge he has a 10% perfect block chance, up to a max of 100% perfect block chance constantly. So Gambit can just perfect block all the time. It'll be interesting to kind of see how that works with his, with how his buff works out. Finally, Archangel. Each hit of a heavy attack into a stunned opponent has a 10% chance to pause all neurotoxins for 3 seconds. So this can be pretty nice, but as a Horseman, neurotoxin stun duration is increased by 30%, so you have more chances to land heavy attacks and refresh those. So Like I said, I want to mostly focus on Apocalypse this video, and I will kind of make separate videos for a few of these Horsemen. But these are some interesting synergies that he offers to other mutants, just again increasing that effect that Apocalypse is there to help out all of your mutants in addition to being a very good champion himself. So back to Apocalypse though, I want to hop into some gameplay now. So let's start off here in 6-4-1 against this Deadpool. Because Deadpool is a mutant, I get those 2 genetic code charges at the start of the fight. And I'm also going to be triggering both debuffs every special attack, which really helps out his ramp up quite a bit. So basically, Apocalypse's rotation is really easy to understand, especially once you have him ramped up. So once you have him ramped up to either 4 genetic code or you're fighting a mutant, and you place, as long as you place both debuffs with every special attack, his rotation is just an SP1 and an SP2, and then just spam specials with all of those debuffs up. So at a 6-star rank 2, I'm dealing an extra 3,000 damage with every hit of his special attacks. And like I said, Apocalypse's special attacks have a ton of hits. After one SP1 and an SP2, this Deadpool's below 50% already, and it's been really fast as well. So I did something in this fight I really didn't need to. I ended up going for an SP3 as the kind of last thing here. But against someone like Deadpool, who I could really consistently heavy attack, I definitely didn't need to. I should have just spammed another SP2 there. That might have actually been able enough to kill him if it crit a couple times as well, but I ended up going for the SP3 here. So it is going to stop Deadpool's healing, which is nice because of that 70% concussion. And it is going to be dealing about 1,000 per tick combined with the degen and the poison debuffs, which is nice. Also getting the reduced healing on Deadpool, which I didn't even consider because of the poison as well, which is nice to have. Didn't need to throw a heavy attack there. Again, the debuffs are now infinite duration. They're going to last forever, but an SP1 is going to finish off the last like 10% of him because of that 3k extra damage per hit. It really is insane. I'm going to say it a ton. That's where Apocalypse's damage really comes from, and that's what I think a lot of people missed when kind of looking at him and comparing him to champions like Ebony Maw. To be honest, I tried out Ebony Maw, and I think Ebony Maw has quite a lot of interesting utility, and he's a pretty fun champion to play, but Apocalypse blows him out of the water. Apocalypse might be one of my favorite champions of 2020. He just has so much going on, and I think what he brings to the table for every mutant is insane, in addition to just being a really fun and really good champion. So this Phoenix here is on the Tenacity path. So I had a lot of trouble with Tenacity doing this path myself. You just can't trust debuffs, which is a bit of a shame, but with Apocalypse, you can. It's great. I can just parry as much as I want here and play against Phoenix like I normally would. An issue here, though, is because I'm not running any synergy to bring myself to max genetic potential. I'm not running any synergies at all. I showed off both the synergies that affected Apocalypse. There really wouldn't be anything major except for a raw attack increase. But I have to do a much slower ramp up against Phoenix because I am at a lower genetic potential to start. I have to be using double the specials that I did against Deadpool to place all 4 of them. So here I think I'm going to go for a heavy attack into a special 2 in a second here. Nope, just straight into the SP2. I was just trying to control which attack I used, make sure I place the right debuff, and hopefully I'll get the... Yep, there's the refresh there off the heavy attack. The debuffs have such a long duration, and it is really nice, but against champions that reduce the duration of debuffs, it can still be a little bit of a pain. Like, I tried fighting Groot on this path, and he took me 2 tries with Apocalypse, just because he kept trying to shrug off debuffs when I wasn't really paying too much attention to them, which I definitely should have been. SP2 here dealt quite a lot, and also pushed Phoenix to her special 2. My goal here with Phoenix, since she has 7 Phoenix charges, was to put her into her overload mode. So she had to get 11 Fury buffs, but actually the concussion caused her to not gain some Fury buffs, which is a little bit of an issue. But luckily, she didn't gain any regen there because she was in overload, and it got her down there with an SP1. I basically wanted to continue on this path until I got to this Annihilus. I figured this Annihilus is a really difficult one, especially with Tenacity. And Apocalypse is not the greatest fight, but he did do some really good work against this Annihilus here. And he did solo him as well, which is always the bare minimum you really want here, especially when trying out a 6-star rank 2. So I've got Apocalypse fully ramped up now. Like I said, after Phoenix, I fought the Heimdall and the Groot there. Groot was a little bit of a pain, but Apocalypse here, Annihilus here, is going to be doing some pretty good work against him, as long as I can continue to parry. Annihilus, though, he's a little bit of a pain about that. He tries to, he's only playing like weird mediums here, and I thought I got the parry, but it keeps becoming stun immune, so I'm not paying attention to it, and I do lose both the debuffs. I am going to be able to apply them in it with just one other SP1 though, which is one of the nice things about having him fully ramped up. If you lose the 2 debuffs, it's not as much of an issue. You only need to use 1 special to get it back instead of 2. Plus, I now have the concussion on Annihilus, so hopefully I'll be stopping him getting a lot more stifles more often. So I should be able to stun him with a parry more often. You can see I'm still missing parries though quite often here. But right here, SP1 does some really good. I think it's only 35,000 there per hit, and the recorder is catching up here. But yeah, so now I just continue. Got to make sure that I still use heavy attacks and refresh those. Annihilus's bleed or Apocalypse's bleeds. They're both A characters. Keep messing them up. Do deal a really good, decent amount too, which is nice. He didn't get a unstoppable off of that heavy attack there, which is nice. Hopefully I can intercept him in a second here. Still went for the heavy attack. Probably shouldn't have done that, but I was trying to get that refresh there. And a nice SP2 should hopefully finish him off when Annihilus goes for the heavy attack there. It's an extra like 2-3% here per hit, which is really nice. He's now at 8%. Got a block on SP2. I probably could have gone right in after him there, but I just go for a heavy attack. Could have changed them as well there, but still not too bad a fight against Annihilus there, to be honest, especially against the tenacity there. So next I wanted to go all the way back into 612. I go against a biohazard path here because I wanted to show off him kind of building up his immunity, and I didn't get it until the very end there. But the bleed's going to take for 7.5 seconds, so once the first one goes up here, you'll see the second one get some immunity. 8 seconds is really not too bad to have to take that bleed damage for. Against a much more high damage opponent, I could definitely see it being a little bit more of an issue, but it wasn't too bad here. So I've got combo party and also special delivery here, so I did have to kind of watch my watch what attacks I was using when I was using them, but I was able to develop the immunity against this Thor Ragnarok pretty easily. I wasn't running a synergy, so I wasn't able to get full genetic code yet, so I did have to use multiple special attacks to build up the debuffs. I've only got the SP1 debuffs here though, but I think I'm just going to use another SP1 here in a second because it's going to deal enough damage. This is a low enough TI Thor Ragnarok. I think he only had like 180,000, 130,000 health compared to some other fights that I'm much more used to now. Perfectly distanced that SP2 there from him, got the heavy attack off at the end. Yeah, SP1 dealt some really good critical damage, but that's mostly due to combo party increasing my critical damage there. And I wanted to continue on the path here, show off this blade, to talk a little bit about that reduced duration of the debuffs here and kind of how that can really mess up Apocalypse. That's kind of the biggest drawback I saw to him. So you see, against Tenacity, it's totally fine because they're not going to be shrugging it off, but you do need to worry about them reducing the duration of the debuffs because then you can't keep them on for long, and you definitely have a lot more trouble refreshing them. So again, I'm only up to 3 genetic code here. This is the fight right after that Thor Ragnarok, again still in 612, and I've got both of the SP1 debuffs here. And I'm going to go for a heavy attack here in a second to refresh them both at the same time. Another one here in a second with the SP2, I think. Combo party building up a little bit here. But here's the real issue. My heavy attack is going to swing and a miss, and I'm going to eat an SP2 straight to the face. If I didn't have bleed immunity, that could have been a big issue. But that was pretty much how it was like fighting Groot the whole time. You just gotta watch out and make sure that you can always use your debuffs at max duration. That's really the only issue that I really had trouble with Apocalypse. If any debuffs just wouldn't last their full duration. Nice, really overkill SP2 there, but had to show that Blade who's boss, you know. All right, next up here, this is the one I really wanted. This is why I went into this path here. I wanted to go up against this Biohazard Sentinel. So the whole path was Biohazard. That's how I built up my immunity, and now against Sentinel, I don't have to worry about it, which is really, really nice. So I do have 4 genetic code, which is nice, so I can place both debuffs on the special attacks. He is poison immune, though. Luckily, though, that is the only debuff that any champion is really going to be immune to. Apocalypse places the degen, which no champion is immune to yet, the weakness, which no one is immune to yet, and the concussion, which I think only a couple of select champions are immune to in like diamond form, like Emma Frost. So really not too much of an issue there. The biggest thing here was playing around special delivery, and obviously bubble shield as well. You already saw me take an SP 1 to the face there. So I'm just going to kind of play around my SP2 here. He does have Arc Overload, which could be a little bit of an issue, but once I get that concussion up, I'm actually able to stop that quite often. Concussion also reduced the chance of Bubble Shield triggering, so he wasn't becoming... I think that's the only unblockable hit that I took this fight. I might take another one later on, though. But I saw that this fight has been an issue in the past, but Apocalypse did do some really good work with it. It was a bit of a slow fight, as you can kind of tell here, but not too bad at all. He ended up gaining the regen there, which is a little disappointing. But I'm just going to be spamming specials now, and that physical damage really isn't reduced too much by anything other than what Sentinel reduces his own physical damage by having a full analysis charge. I did try to play around analysis. I couldn't really get it to work too much, though, so I just decided to ignore it and go for special attack spam. So, like I said, just spamming that SP1. What I probably should have done was go for a special 3, because the special 3 would have made the concussion a 70% ability accuracy reduction, which not only would have helped me a little bit more against Bubble Shield, but it also would have been more likely to shut down the Arc Overload that Sentinel is gaining. Like I said, this is quite a long fight. I think the Arc Overload definitely didn't help, but I also had to worry about special delivery. Although I think at some points I do make the mistake and just kind of ignore it. But I'm still dealing some really good damage here over a long time. Sentinel did actually trigger an unblockable attack there, but I didn't get hit by it, which was great. I think in a second here I'm going to go against... I like baiting the SP2 a little bit more with Sentinel, because I think his power gain after it feels like a little bit less, and it's pretty easy to dodge and punish as well. But both of his specials are pretty easy to dodge and punish. So right here, I think concussion finally stops that region from triggering. I've only got 2 critical rating buffs here, which I'm not really sure why I only have 2 with a 90 combo, 3 now with a 90 combo. But it's not really making any effect because against Sentinel, I'm not critting since he has that 100% analysis charge. Another SP1 spam there. Again, just dealing... So I think his SP1 is 7 hits. So it's an extra 1,700 per. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so there maybe 6 hits there. But still a long fight against Sentinel. Definitely not the best, but not the worst for it either. So to end it off, I wanted to have a little bit of fun. Bane with a power shield. Apocalypse, like I said, all of his damage is really in his special attacks. So I wanted to go against this Punisher here and see what he could do just with special attacks. So his first SP1, they're really long, which helps the Bane transfer. But every hit was dealing an extra 6,000 because the power shield was also affecting his extra burst physical damage. So I'm going to be dealing a ton of extra damage. Bane really dealing a big issue there to me. It's nice that Apocalypse has those long specials for the Bane transfer windows. I can throw it when he's at like when it's only like halfway ticked down, and I'll still get the full transfer window, which is really nice. I think right here I'm going to bait out, or going to block a full SP2 by a Punisher, and you'll see what my SP2 does here. I am fully ramped up because I fought Deadpool and then Venom the Duck, and right here, SP2 triggers 2 debuffs, extra 14,000 damage per hit, and 1 hit crit for 20,000. Absolutely insane. Right there, I'm going to get the full Bane transfer and the special, and then SP1 is going to deal some really good damage. I thought I'd finish it off here with doing one more power shield fight against this Storm. So this was just a bit of a fun thing to do, just to kind of show off Apocalypse's damage, how it really comes from his special attacks. Overall, I really think Apocalypse is a phenomenal champion. He may seem really complex, and he took a little bit to explain, but after only like 10 minutes of trying to figure him out, it worked out really well. This SP2 here is going to hit for so much damage. Look at that. Almost 60% there. Only 36 hits in. Power Shield is so much fun. But overall, not only he brings some interesting immunities to the table, like Bleed and Incinerate. I think only like Colossus has that, I think, currently. I could be definitely wrong on that, though. But the immunity to Disorient, I think, will hopefully have some interesting uses in the future. So that's pretty much it for Apocalypse. Absolutely, I think, a phenomenal champion. After I upload this video, I'm also going to upload videos for a couple of the Horsemen. Right now, I'm thinking definitely Storm and Psylocke, because if you've been on my channel for a while, you know I have a soft spot for Psylocke. Anything for her, I gotta cover. But I also want to make one maybe on Colossus as well, and kind of how he does. But yeah, Apocalypse by himself, which is the focus of this video, is really, really good. Apologies that this video was really long. Just had a lot to show off, and he has just so much going on. It's insane. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you found it informative, and hopefully after seeing this you realize how Apocalypse is a phenomenal champion, not just someone to buff up his Horsemen. Once you see that gameplay, you'll see that's a lot of people will be using him for that, and I can't blame them, especially that Storm. Holy cow. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. So hopefully you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more content creator program reviews from me. I also have an Ebony Maw video I'm working on, a Mephisto video, and then obviously the Horseman videos will be coming out later today. I'll also be streaming at 5 p.m. Eastern as normal for week 3 of the Summoner Showdown. If you're seeing this on the day I upload it, if you're seeing it after that, sorry, maybe you can check out the VOD of the Summoner Showdown. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a good one.